youngsters from Liverpool, England.
People all over the world are just beginning to talk about the Beatles.
My model of business is the Beatles. You know, they were four very talented guys.
1, 2, 3.
Hello, my name's Paul McCartney. This is Ringo Starr. This is John Lennon. I'm George Harrison.
Welcome back to the Here, There, and Everywhere podcast. I'm your host, Jack Lawless. Today we're interviewing the extremely talented singer-songwriter Chris Peters. Chris studied at Berklee College of Music and has collaborated with artists like Lizzy McAlpine and the Jonas Brothers. The Beatles are a huge inspiration for Chris, and today we're both diving deep into why the Beatles still influence so many musicians, how they've influenced Chris, and we're going to talk about a song that Chris wrote about Paul and Linda McCartney. So, I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Chris, thank you so much for coming on the Here, There, and Everywhere podcast. How are you doing today?
Good, man. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing good. I just finished listening to a lot of your music, and it's so good. I'm super excited to dive deep into it and start asking you about your inspirations and how the Beatles all come into play too.
Sure, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So, Chris, can you tell us a little bit about your music for anyone who hasn't heard it yet?
Sure. Well, I definitely would say I fall kind of into like the singer-songwriter genre, which is kind of an interesting thing because anyone who says they're a singer-songwriter means they can just do whatever genre they want. Like think of like Billy Joel or like I don't know, even Paul McCartney. They've done every genre, but the song is kind of like the forefront of the music and the songwriting and the storytelling and everything. But my music's pretty wholesome. It's pretty universal. I'm a big fan of a lot of like artists who have like kids and parents as their fans kind of thing. So yeah, I actually on my Spotify bio is if Tom Holland made music. And so it's kind of just like the boy next door kind of vibe. I don't know. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, who are your biggest inspirations when it comes to writing music?
Well, it's all started with the Beatles for sure. So the Beatles were huge when I was like 5 or 6. I got into them, and then I saw the Jonas Brothers doing music actually because they were hot when I was like 7 or 8 years old, and I saw that you can write and play music and do it all yourself, and I was already doing that, so I thought that was awesome. So those were the two ones that got me into it and got me like writing songs when I was really young. But since then, I'm a big fan of like Ben Rector, who's a singer-songwriter in Nashville. This guy John McLaughlin, who I just went on tour with, which was awesome. So that was fun to go with him. And then yeah, the Beatles, the Jonas Brothers. I like Casey Musgraves and yeah, artists like that. I don't know, all over the place. Harry Styles too, just like pop and singer-songwriter kind of artists that are all over the place.
And how did you hear the Beatles for the first time?
It's interesting. I think they've like always been around in my life. I think my dad has just always played them. And I remember being in like kindergarten and getting a cheap like Fisher Price guitar from Target and just like strumming open strings and not even using the left hand at all, along with like their CDs because CDs were the thing. But yeah, so they've just always been around. I don't know when I started. I don't think I ever did start. I think I just was born and they were playing, you know? I don't know.
And from I guess from that young of an age, you probably don't even remember what your first thoughts were when you first heard them. But how old were you when you started to, become a fan in your own right?
Yeah, I don't know. I remember being in 4th grade and they went through another big phase. I think that was just like 2009 or something. I don't know. There was a lot of, I think this was when they got on iTunes, and I think they had another wave of popularity. At least kids my age started listening to them, I guess, at that point. And there was like Beatles shirts at stores, and people were always wearing them and getting around. And I remember being like, they're old. I've been a fan of them for years. Like, they don't even have any new music. And like thinking stuff like that and making fun of the people who were just getting into them. This was only 4th grade. We were like 9 years old. So I think that was like the earliest thought I had about them, which is the fact that I've always known them. But then it wasn't until probably like high school when I was like, oh, these guys, like musically and songwriting wise, they're just like they're so popular and they're so amazing because it's so good. It's just like everything is just I don't know. They are the way they are because or they reached their popularity for a reason, you know? Because I had just always known them. But I mean, I had been playing their songs on guitar and piano and learning everything of theirs. So I was a huge fan, but I just didn't realize until I started listening to other music and I got into like high school that I was like, "Oh, this is like better than a lot of the stuff that has been around." And I just started with it. I don't know, I guess I was kind of lucky. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Beatles are so much better than any other of the contemporary artists in that era that we kind of grew up in.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember in when the Beatles first were released on iTunes, that was huge for our generation because
Yeah.
not only did it introduce us more to the Beatles music, but now we had their music on the go with our
Right.
iPod Touch. So it was cool.
Yeah. I remember that was a huge thing. That was how old were you in 2009?
I was like 12 or 13.
Well, yeah. So I was 9 years old, and I remember that was kind of like iPod touches were a big thing. But yeah, there's like a big wave of like people wearing T-shirts on like picture day of like Beatles shirts and stuff. And like I don't know. And I'm like, are you sure you want to wear a Beatles shirt on picture day? It's gonna be in the yearbook forever or something. but but yeah, it was. And at that point, I was into the Jonas Brothers because I was like, they're coming out with new music, and they liked the Beatles as well. Like they covered "Hello Goodbye" for like a Target commercial or something, and I thought that was awesome. I was like, whoa, we're all fans of the Beatles. So, but yeah, I was. And then I went to college for music. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and it really it hit even more. I feel like as I'm just getting older and older, I'm getting even more and more appreciation for them because then you're like understanding the harmony behind everything and like not only the lyrics but like some of the choices they made in their songwriting are just like insane and nobody has done it since, but it was so popular in the mainstream, like I don't know, it wouldn't happen today kind of thing. It's crazy.
Are the Beatles the reason you chose to be a musician as a career path and to go to Berklee and follow that dream?
Yeah, totally. I think so. I think I'd always known that I was going to do music, and I didn't know in what way, and I'm still kind of figuring it out. I think I'll always write and release music no matter what I'm doing with the rest of my life. But I'd always known that I was going to do it, probably just because I saw them at such a young age, and I just always knew that that was just like I don't know, my thing was the thing. But yeah, totally, just because of them and just how much it spoke to me and how it spoke to everyone.
So, Chris, what is so inspirational about the Beatles and about their songs?
Yeah. Well, there's a whole world of the engineering that is like totally new. And that was a lot of their team and like George Martin and Jeff Emmerich and all the people that helped them that because I majored in audio engineering at Berkeley. So we talked a lot about that. And so they made a lot of changes that like even to this day, people are still trying to figure out how they got these sounds and did these things. And then so that was a whole other aspect of it. And then another thing is like they were they had a very good sense for like what works and what doesn't work like in a song. And I think that came from like all the months and years of like playing when they went and played in Germany and then they would just play like 8-hour nights and do all that, those long gigs. They just like they knew what worked in a song, but they didn't necessarily know how it worked or whatever. I think there's even a story where when they were kids, they took a bus somewhere to learn the B chord from someone, and they learned the B chord, and they came back on the bus. I think like Paul tells this story in a couple interviews or something, and they were so excited because now they knew how to do this like B7 chord, and so like that like childlike sense to it all mixed with like George Martin's like knowledge of classical music and comedy albums and stuff like that. I don't know. It made things very like easily palatable for everyone. It wasn't too complex with like crazy arrangements and crazy voicings of chords, but it was still interesting and unique to where it would stand out against like other like 3-chord songs and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's a mixture of that like childlike wonder that just mixed with like the knowledge of actually what you were doing from George Martin, from other people, that just made it so palatable to everyone because I don't know. No, everyone's either one or the other. You never have both, you know?
Right, right. And do they have a big influence on your music specifically, or even your life for that matter?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I always think like, and it's interesting. I don't know how if I could reference other episodes in your podcast on your show, but I was listening to your episode with Josh Turner, and he was talking about how like Paul is like the musician's musician, and I always think about like being like that. I would love to come across to other musicians like Paul comes across to us, and the fact that like, oh, the melodies are beautiful, the chords are beautiful, and the lyrics may be simple or whatever. That may be because of the time, or it could just be because they're trying to appeal to a lot of people. But yeah, I'm just always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about just how they would be I don't know, unique and try to appeal to a lot of people, but also just like do what's fun and do what's cool and what they were into at the time, because a lot of those things that they did, like especially once they started getting into like adding, like when George was adding like sitars into songs, and then they were adding the tape loops and all these fun things. They were just experimenting and just looking into like what they just trusted their gut. So I always try to have that mentality. There's a book, I don't have it with me, but there's a book of all of the Beatles like recording sessions. You know what I'm talking about? It's like it like goes through, because they had to log. I think EMI had to log every day that they were in the studio. So yeah, it goes through everything, and I love, if I'm never like looking for inspiration or something, I'll just flip that open and see, oh, this day they recorded this and then they recorded this, and seeing that like their work ethic is super inspiring too, because they were just like pumping out music nonstop, and some of the like greatest things just in like 3 or 4 albums in 1 year. It's crazy.
Yeah, the Beatles always had a really tight schedule when it came to recording their albums. I mean, you look at music now, and some artists take like 2 to 3 years between each record. And,
Yeah.
they might be growing creatively, but the Beatles had to, make 2 records a year almost on average. And they were only together for 7 years.
Yeah.
So the amount that they grew creatively is crazy.
Yeah, and actually, I bring that up to a lot of my friends recently too, because like we're in this weird spot in the music industry where you kind of have to put out more stuff just to get noticed, or just to get people to see what you are, because there's so many people releasing music, and so many people just like putting videos up and trying to get noticed, of getting a fan base or getting some label to interested in them or something. I was telling a good friend, I was like, well, it's kind of like we're just like the Beatles in the early 60s, where like we have to, like, because now there's a whole thing with waterfall releases, where you do the songs, you release like every song on an album, but it just takes like a year to release your album kind of thing, and it just like keeps people interested. There's all these different music business things, but that in the 60s they had all these things too that shaped their music. Like you could only buy, like, records were a big thing, so they just wanted to have multiple records in a year, and they just put out so much stuff. And it feels like today we kind of have to do that again, instead of like having the years in between albums and everything. So I don't know, it's interesting. It's curious to see where the future of the music industry will go, but it's fun to know that like the Beatles have been through so many different aspects of that industry. So they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah. And Chris, you also wrote a song that was inspired by the Beatles and Paul McCartney.
Oh yeah, that is a huge one. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that one? A
Sure.
Note to James and Linda?
Yeah. So I don't know. I read in a book, I think it was just like a biography on Paul's life, this story, and I don't know if you're aware of it, but I kind of go through it in my song. But apparently Linda knew she only had a short amount of time left to live because she had cancer. And so Paul encouraged her to go to Arizona, where I think she grew up, or she was from, or she had a very nice tie to Arizona or something. I think they had a house there or something, I don't know. But she loved riding horses and everything, so he convinced her to go there and ride horses and like spend the last couple months of her life there. And there's interviews and a few things, and I thought that story was so sad. And I love songs that are about other people and like not about yourself, and just kind of like a story song. And the Beatles have tons of them. And so I was like, that would be a really good song. And so I was trying to be artsy, and I put Ode to James and Linda, because James Paul McCartney, like his first name was technically James. So I was trying. I don't know why I did that. I guess I was just trying to show that I know something. I don't know. but so there's a lot of little hints in the song. So I had this. I had the music for the song, and then I started writing. When I heard the story, I was like, oh, this would go well with this song I already had. This idea. And there's a lot of like hints and nods to Beatles fans. Like a lot of people know that Paul's first song he wrote was "I Lost My Little Girl," was the title of it. And so in the bridge of my song, I say, "No way, I'm losing my little girl, not again, not again." And so it's like referencing that song. And people think that song is tied to his mother passing away when he was young, and he lost her to cancer as well. So I made that tie, and I thought that was very interesting. And I even found an interview where Paul was talking about it. I think there's a few like written articles about this whole story, and they mentioned that they were on an Appaloosa horse. Like an Appaloosa is the type of horse. And so I threw that lyric in there, and so it's like factually correct, I guess, according to these things. So I don't know. It was a fun, interesting like creativity challenge, because so many of my songs are like personal, and this was one where I was just like, okay, well, let me take this story. And I think it kind of follows like similar chord shapes that like a Beatles song would have, and it has like a slide guitar that sounds very reminiscent of like a George Harrison "All Things Must Pass," like kind of something from that album. And there's just a very strong bass line, and it's harmonized the whole time. So like Paul was the bass player, so there's a lot of different things that I was thinking of while I was making this song. It's kind of like my gift to them, just for thanking them for like. Because I mean, I love the Beatles, but I think I'm a Paul guy, like at the core. And so when I heard this story, it was just like so sad. I was like, wow, I think more people need to hear this. So I made it.
Yeah, I think it's such a cool song.
Oh, thank you.
I really do. I think being able to write a tribute song to someone who inspired you so much is just a testament to your artistic ability too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Do you know if Paul has heard it?
I have no idea. I would love to have him hear it. That would be crazy.
So, speaking of crafting songs, Chris, what's your opinion on the Beatles' technical ability as musicians?
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, they had this like childlike wonder where they I feel like they knew what they were doing feeling wise, like they knew that this was giving a certain feeling, or like they were stealing something from a song they heard from their childhood or whatever in terms of chord progressions. But yet they also kind of didn't know what they were doing. And they always say that, like I think they would mention that they like, oh, we don't know how to read music, or we don't know how to do this or that technically, but they had the feeling behind it. So in a way, like I feel like if you learn too much about music, you kind of lose that childlike wonder and the excitement of like not knowing why something is cool, like a chord shape or a like I think there's a lot of interviews where Paul is talking about Michelle, and there's like that second chord in the song, like Michelle, my belle, like that second chord is this crazy shape that they learned and they didn't know what it was, so they're like, let's put it in a song, and like that kind of thing, where the technicality grew with them afterwards, but at the beginning they were very just kind of doing stuff because it sounded great, and I would say like. Short answer is yes, they are both. All four of them are like great musicians. Ringo's an incredible drummer, and you can see a lot of that like in the Get Back documentary, just like them jamming in between whatever and figuring stuff out. And they're doing like covers of songs they used to do when they were doing covers and stuff. It's clear to see that like they're hopping around. Ringo's playing the piano. George is showing him something. I don't know if they're doing like Octopus's Garden or something like that. And they're just like, each one of them plays multiple instruments at one time, and they're just jumping around. And I guess, yeah, they never really went to like school for it. I mean, that wasn't even a thing in the 60s, but like, unless it was for jazz or classical music. But anyway, yeah, there was just something very unique with them. I think they are all great musicians. And on top of that, like, it doesn't even matter if you write a song like Yesterday, or a song like In My Life, or a song like, you know, you just keep going forever. They're just, the melodies and the chords and everything are just incredible. Like you're considered one of the greats at that point, you know? Yeah. And they're all like working together at it too, which was pretty cool. Like they always talk about how in the songwriting partnership between John and Paul, of course, they had a lot of back and forth. Like, for example, like I admit it's getting better all the time. And then John was the one that said, can't get much worse. Like that kind of thing. Like his cynicism and Paul's optimism were just like perfect compliments to each other. And then also like George will come up with a cool guitar thing, or it was cool seeing like in Get Back, like Ringo, how a song could completely change if the drum groove was different. So I think like the song Two of Us, he started with like a normal hi-hat kind of thing, and it just was totally a different song. And it was not the same feeling that they ended up getting with the like tom dum, 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 that is in the Two of Us. So yeah, they all like contributed. And then on top of that, George Martin. So it's just like crazy, like the best five brains all at it,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, do you have a favorite personal memory that's associated with the Beatles?
I get really emotional. Like when I watch Paul McCartney concerts on TV, or I've been to one. And so like when I was there, it's crazy to see everyone sing along to like the cheesiest one. Like I say cheesy because they're the most like stereotypical, everyone sings along to these, but the songs aren't cheesy. But like for like Hey Jude or like Yesterday or anything like that, and it's cuts to the audience singing and people are crying or just like enjoying it or getting into it. And it is just so amazing how many people they reached. So that really hits me a lot. So I think like my favorite personal thing is just like going to I went to a Paul McCartney concert. So the one concert I went to, and then anytime I pull up like a YouTube video or anything that is them playing their music, is just so crazy how many people they influenced back in the 60s. And then it's even more today. It's like crazy that here we are, like, what is it, 50 something years since? No, it's way more than that. 75? Because 40, 50. But yeah, it's just, and I'm only mentioning Paul just because I think he plays their stuff the most. It's either him or Ringo right now. So he plays like Beatles songs, and for a while, like John and George wouldn't play; they would only play their originals and stuff. But yeah, it's just my favorite personal memory is just like seeing how much it influences other people, and then it makes me realize like how much they've touched me, and I'm just like, these guys are awesome. We have this quote in my roommates and I, like anytime I learn a new Beatles fact or something that I didn't know, or some like fun fact or something random, I just like come out of my room and I just scream, "The Beatles are awesome!" And they're all like, "Yeah, the Beatles are awesome!" It's just like the most stereotypical, just like random. They kind of get annoyed with like how much I'm obsessed with them, but I don't know, it's fun. That I force them to watch all the documentaries and everything with me, so it's great.
Awesome. And Chris, I know you touched on it earlier, but how do you feel about being part of this next generation of songwriters? Are there any unique challenges that you face or advantages? How do you navigate being a songwriter in 2025?
Well, it's really hard too, because I feel like there's a lot of times where I have friends who are just normal like pop producers or songwriters, and they do like pop music or country music or R&B or just whatever, and there'll be some sort of lick or something, and I'm like, that's the same that the Beatles had in here, or that's the same, and like because they may not know their catalog as well, and so it's hard to not, because they had so many songs in those 10 years. And so I mean, I guess there's so many other songs in general, so it's hard to like make something new and exciting that's not what they did while also trying to reach the same amount of people. So I'm always thinking like, okay, how can I use chord shapes or use like a melody that is reminiscent of theirs but isn't just copying them, because they did so many kind of things. But in general in the industry, it's kind of, I don't know. Everything is changing these days with like TikTok, and then maybe the ban of TikTok, and then the promotion of music and everything. I think like eventually it's just gonna get back to the root of like great songs and great shows, and just, I don't know, and remembering people who started with that, like the Beatles, is just gonna, I don't know, I guess help you get far. I hope. I don't know, but it's hard to say what kind of challenges we'll face besides like copying them. I don't know. Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Do you feel like now that there's more pressure to have a social media presence as an artist, Do you feel like being online and on social media takes away from your creativity at all?
Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to there was a lot of music businessy stuff that the Beatles did. I mean, they didn't do it. Like Brian took over everything, and a lot of stuff that now we just have to take care of ourselves, like the merchandising of like the Beatles wigs and like all these different things. And when they first came to the US, they could have bumped up to bigger venues, but they kept the ones that they had because they wanted to show that it was sold out and show that it was like hard to get, to like make them even more popular kind of thing. And stuff like that that has been here all along. But yeah, there is a pressure to advertise your music, and maybe it takes away from being creative, maybe it doesn't. But yeah, it would be nice to be like it would, I envy the Beatles, where they just kind of woke up, wrote a song, went to the studio, recorded it, and then everything else was taken care of for them. Now you kind of have to do it all yourself. So it's a lot more work these days.
Chris, who's your dream collaboration? If you could collaborate on a song with anybody, present or past, who would it be?
Well, I'd be lying if I didn't say Paul McCartney. That would be
Right. Yeah.
crazy. But of course, everyone wants to collab with the Beatles or Paul McCartney. I loved how, how he came out with, well, he had that album that was people like doing remixes of, it was like modern artists doing remixes. And I love the Dominic Fike Kiss of Venus song. That would be awesome. Where I don't know how much they like collaborated together. I think he just got the music and was able to add his own flair to it. But something like that would be awesome, to be in that, to like have a song with Paul McCartney would be insane. He would really be the top of the top. I think it's very unlikely, so who knows? But the people I mentioned before, like I would love to collaborate with Nick Jonas or the Jonas Brothers, just because they were also a huge part in my life. But yeah, I was just, even just a conversation with Paul would be insane. So he's definitely number one. He's my dude.
Awesome. Well, I hope it happens eventually.
Well, thank you.
So what are you up to now, Chris? Are you involved in any projects at the moment? Any new songs coming out?
Yeah, I have something new coming, I think in either January or February. Just got the master back for that, and just working on, I'm trying to release a song every 4 to 6 weeks for like the next year or two. And I went on tour last year, and it was my first tour, and it was great. I was opening for John McLaughlin, and now I'm working at trying to get some more and play a lot around the US, or who knows, maybe even international. But yeah, I'm living in LA and just recording and writing every day. And yeah, a song coming out at the beginning of the year. And then after that, just more music and more shows.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. And where can people follow you? Do you post on Instagram primarily?
Yeah, I have Instagram. I think it's just at Chris_Peters_. Instagram, TikTok, everything. There's like a link in bio with everything there too. And my website is chrispeterswebsite.com, because the domain chrispeters.com was taken. Chris Peters Music was taken. All these other ones. So I thought it'd be funny if I had the word website in my domain. So there you go.
That's awesome. And for everyone listening, all of those links that Chris just mentioned will be in the podcast description, as well as links to his music. Chris is really, really, really talented, so please go check him out. Chris, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.